You know, for decades, we've been promised this future straight out of a movie. Flying cars zipping between buildings, super fast pods shooting us from one city to another. Well, today, that future has a name: urban air mobility and Hyperloop. They promise to finally kill the traffic jam and make our world feel a whole lot smaller. But how much of this is real and how much is just hype? So let's dig in and find out what the real future of motion looks like.
All right, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into the incredible dream these technologies are selling us. Then, we'll look at the huge economic engine they could fire up before we get a serious reality check on their green promises. After that, we'll unpack the insane costs and the tough questions people are asking, see how this could totally reshape our world for better or worse, and finally, figure out what the road and the sky ahead really looks like.
So let's just set the stage here. The core promise, the big idea behind both urban air mobility and Hyperloop, is a solution to something we all know and hate: that's soul-crushing traffic. The vision is a world where getting around isn't a stressful nightmare, but something seamless, quick, and maybe even fun.
And that really is the question, isn't it? I mean, we've had faster cars and better trains for 100 years, but this is something else entirely. This isn't just an upgrade. It's a complete rethink. It's not about making the car faster. It's about getting rid of the road altogether. So, are we really truly standing on the edge of a new era for how we move? And here they are, our two main contenders in this revolution. On one side, you've got urban air mobility, or UAM, basically flying cars designed to use the sky as a new highway in our cities. And on the other, you've got Hyperloop, a ground-based system that could be as fast as a jet plane. Both are incredibly ambitious, both look like they're from the future, and both want to completely change how we think about time and distance.
Let's break down Hyperloop first. Just picture this: a massive sealed tube with almost all the air pumped out, creating a near vacuum. Inside that tube, passenger pods basically float on magnets, which gets rid of almost all friction. This lets them hit incredible speeds. We're talking theoretically over 700 miles per hour. A trip that takes hours by car could be done in just a few minutes. It's an idea that could literally redefine what far away means.
And then we have urban air mobility. The stars of this show are called EVTOs. That stands for Electric Vertical Takeoff and Landing Aircraft. The easiest way to think about them is as quiet, all-electric, and eventually self-flying versions of a helicopter. The big idea is to have a whole network of these flying cars that you can call up on demand to hop over all the traffic down below. It's about making a flight across town as normal as calling a rideshare.
Okay, so beyond just being incredibly cool, there's a huge economic argument being made for all of this. The people pushing these technologies say this isn't just about getting from A to B faster. It's about creating a whole new economy. Let's dig into that promise.
For UAM, the vision is that it'll be a massive economic engine. First, you've got the jobs. And we're talking high-skilled jobs: aerospace engineers, coders for the autonomous flight systems, battery experts. Then you've got the investment. I mean, venture capital and the big established aerospace companies are pouring billions into these startups. And finally, think about the local impact. Better connections make cities more productive. And the actual landing pads, these vertiports, could kickstart development and breathe new life into parts of a city.
Hyperloop's economic pitch is just as big, but on a much larger regional scale. When you can connect cities in minutes, it completely changes the idea of a commute. You could live in one city and work in a completely different one, no problem. But honestly, the real game changer might be for freight. In the age of next-day delivery, speed is everything. Hyperloop could supercharge logistics, cutting shipping times and costs for everything we buy online. It could create these massive, interconnected super regions.
Okay, so the dream is powerful, and the economic case sounds pretty compelling. But this is the point where we have to pump the brakes and ask some really hard questions. Let's switch gears to the environmental side of things. We're promised this clean, green future. But can flying cars and high-speed tubes actually deliver on that?
Now, before we get into the stats, you need to understand the tool scientists use for this. It's called a life cycle assessment, or LCA. This isn't just about what comes out of the tailpipe or, the battery. It's a full cradle-to-grave analysis. It looks at everything: the impact of mining the materials, the energy used to build the thing, the energy it uses during its life, and what happens when it's thrown away. It's the only way to see the true environmental cost.
And when researchers actually used this method to study eVTOLs, the results were pretty shocking, actually. You'd think that building one of these things with all the carbon fiber and batteries would be the biggest part of its carbon footprint. Nope, not even close.
After just about 100 hours of flying, the emissions from just operating the vehicle completely overtake all the emissions from manufacturing it. Let that sink in. In just a couple of weeks of regular use, the energy it takes to fly becomes the biggest environmental factor by far.
And this slide is so important because it shows that green flight isn't a guarantee at all. For one of these flying cars to actually be better for the planet than a regular gas car, 4 very specific things have to be true. First, the grid intensity has to be low, meaning the electricity charging it has to come from clean sources like solar or wind. Second, seat utilization is everything. They have to fly with a full load of passengers. Otherwise, it's a huge waste of energy. Third, the hover share has to be tiny. They need to be flying on long direct paths, not burning tons of power just hovering. And finally, and this might be the most important one, there have to be real distance savings. If it's not a major shortcut, the massive energy cost just isn't worth it.
So the green dream has a lot of ifs. But beyond that, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the immense cost and the social challenges. Who's actually going to pay for all this, and who really gets to benefit from it? This is where the critics start getting very loud.
And this skepticism isn't just coming from outsiders. This quote, it's from a public forum where industry insiders were talking about the Boring Company's projects. It really captures this deep feeling of distrust. While the promoters see genius innovation, a lot of the experienced pros see unproven ideas and shortcuts. It just goes to show you, winning over the public is one thing, but winning over the experts is a whole other challenge.
And these hurdles, wow, they are not small. It starts with the absolutely massive cost, which puts a huge strain on public money. That cost almost guarantees high ticket prices, which brings up the biggest question of all, equity. Is this really a public transit solution, or is it just a new toy for the rich? That creates a huge risk of making our cities even more divided. And on top of all of that, you have the public's very real concerns about safety and reliability. So here's the bottom line. The technology itself, like this concept vehicle, looks incredible. It's impressive. But its actual success isn't just an engineering problem anymore. Getting these things into our skies is blocked by huge financial walls and really complicated social questions that have to be answered first. And this brings us to the biggest question of all. If, and that's a big if, we manage to overcome all these challenges, what kind of world are we actually building? Because these technologies won't just change our commute, they could fundamentally change our cities and our society. But is it a change for the better? You know, there are really 2 possible futures here. The utopian vision is that this amazing transport helps cities grow up, not out. These seamless connections could bring new life to city centers and create new opportunities for everyone. The risk, though, is the dystopian version, a future that's even more divided. One where this shiny new infrastructure displaces communities and just widens the gap between the wealthy who fly overhead and everyone else on the ground below.
All right, let's bring it all together. We've seen the dream, we've looked at the money, we've gone through the reality checks, and we've weighed the risks. So what's the verdict? What does the road and the sky ahead really look like?
And it really all boils down to this, doesn't it? A final scorecard. On one side, you have this incredible promise. Unbelievable speed, new economic growth, a real fix for congestion. But on the other side, the hurdles are just as huge. The astronomical cost, the fact that it's only sustainable under perfect conditions, a lot of public distrust, and some really serious questions about fairness.
And this might be the single most important takeaway from all of this. Just because we can build it doesn't mean it's going to work. Success is not guaranteed just because the tech is cool. It is not inevitable. No, its success depends on solving the whole puzzle at once, not just the technical engineering problems, but also the massive financial, political, and social challenges we've been talking about. If we can't solve all of those, this high-speed future is going to stay a dream.
So we end with this. The technology is coming. It's not science fiction anymore. The prototypes are real. So the question isn't about the tech anymore. The real question is for us. Are we ready? Are we ready to make the hard choices about who pays, who benefits, and what kind of world we want to build? Because that choice, well, that's up to us.